Hello, everyone. Today is Monday, March the 2nd, 2026, and you have joined Ask a Care Navigator, Mondays with Maureen. Hello, everyone. My name is Maureen Williams, and I'm the Director of Care Navigation here at Four Seasons the Care You Trust. And we try to create this space on most Mondays to talk about issues associated with living well and aging well, and perhaps how we may be of service. Today, I'm joined by a very special guest who will meet in just a moment. As always, if you have any questions or comments, please call us at 866-466-9734, or please go to our website, which is fourseasonscare.org. Please spell out the number 4, FOURSEASONSCARE.org. There's lots of information there and ways to send in an inquiry. And I am always grateful, and I'm sitting in the offices of Van Winkle Law Firm right now with my special guest, but I'm so grateful to the Van Winkle Law Firm for serving as the title sponsor for this program, Ask a Care Navigator, Mondays with Maureen. The Van Winkle Law Firm is one of the most well-established and well-respected law firms in North Carolina, providing expert legal representation to individuals, businesses, and families on matters in personal, business, commercial, and estate planning matters. Particularly, I interface with you all on estate planning matters. So if you have any questions or you want to learn more about Van Winkle Law, please go to the website, which is www.vwlawfirm.com. And you'll see that information in the comments section as well. Well, I'm delighted, thrilled, trying not to jump out of my skin, excited to have the first of 6 sessions from members of the Van Winkle Law Firm to join us on matters that, on a topic that matters to many of you. And this is my special guest, Heather Goldstein. Heather, tell us about yourself.
Hi, Maureen. Thanks so much for having me here today. And our firm appreciates partnership with you. So I think we're looking forward to doing this whole series with you. I'm Heather Goldstein. I'm a native of Asheville, grew up here, lived here most of my life. I'm an attorney here at Van Winkle, and for the last 10 or 15 years, I have focused my practice almost exclusively on dispute resolution and problem solving in situations that involve older adults who are losing or planning to lose mental capacity. I call it planning to lose your marbles. And when I have the opportunity to work with adults who are doing the planning, who aren't yet there, we talk about the reality that probably 1 in 3 of us is going to lose some amount of cognitive capacity at some point. Some of us might only lose 1 or 2 marbles. Some of us will lose all of our marbles, and many of us will be somewhere in between. And to navigate that successfully requires advanced planning, and then some real thoughtfulness as you move through the actual phases of cognitive change when that happens.
Wow. So this is perfect. So everyone knows this. None of this conversation constitutes legal advice.
Right. Thank you.
Take care of my special guest here. And I shared with Heather how this gets set up. This is perfect. She's the perfect person for this conversation. Many of my clients and families with whom I interface, families will come to me and say, Mom and Dad do have dementia. They're living with dementia, but we think that maybe their directives need to be changed, or some of their documents or their wishes. How do we do that? And believe me, I know my place in this world, and it is not in the legal world. And I always advise them to speak with an attorney. So Heather, that's what kind of sets up this conversation here. Talk about this decision-making situation that bubbles up.
Yes. It's tough. And first, I'll thank you and reiterate the disclaimer that this isn't legal advice. I'm happy to talk today kind of in general about lots of types of situations that we see, but any one family or one person's specific situation should be, if appropriate, discussed with an attorney or an appropriate professional, because it does matter all of the individual circumstances. But generally speaking, what you're talking about is a call that we get here in our office almost every day. Mom or dad is losing or has lost cognitive capacity. some well-meaning family member or other person in their life is trying to step in and provide support, and they want us to tell them how to do it. And that is a pretty fraught time for us to enter the conversation. Best case scenario, the conversation would have taken place before we were in a cognitive capacity crisis, but that's not always where we are. So I think we could start with some terms, maybe, please, and some ways to think about what is happening when cognitive abilities are changing. So all the time people will call and will say, my mom is incompetent. A doctor has said she's incompetent. Right. Or you will hear, she doesn't have decision-making capacity, and so we need to make decisions for her. And so not to get too legally on it, but these terms are cousins and also have different meanings depending on the context they're used. Medical providers, and they may be the first person you hear talk about capacity, medical providers will often talk about decision-making capacity. Right. And they are looking at that from a medical point of view. Does this person have the ability to appreciate their own healthcare needs and consent or not consent to their own treatment? Also, medical providers who work with dementia patients have a sense about decision-making capacity as it relates to financial and legal documents. Got a little honk horn behind here. You may be hearing
agreeing
that.
with you.
Yeah. Uh-huh. And so you can have compromised decision-making capacity that may or may not mean you're incompetent. Being incompetent is a legal term. You are only incompetent following a proceeding before a clerk of superior court in North Carolina, where you are deemed to be incompetent by the clerk of superior court. So it's actually a judicial declaration, and the definition of incompetence is unable to make or communicate important decisions or manage your own affairs. Ugh, that's a lot of legalese.
But I love that. I hope it absorb that, please. That's
right.
The incompetence piece, because I hear it thrown around loosely. It's before a judge. I want everybody to remember that.
Only a judge can say that you are incompetent. But the question of whether you have the requisite amount of capacity to make a certain decision at a certain point in time actually is not necessarily related to whether you are incompetent or not. And so that's the better place to focus our attention. And different kinds of decisions require different amounts of capacity. So healthcare decision-making is one thing, and usually healthcare providers are trained when they're in dialogue with a patient to determine for themselves whether the patient can appreciate the consequences of a medical decision. And those healthcare providers will go looking for a surrogate decision maker if they think the patient needs one, but they're always going to try to involve the patient in that. Legally, where it comes to me more is mom and dad's finances. So there's bank accounts, there's bills that need to be paid. And it is often one of the first indicators for family members of when someone has changing mental capacity, that they're not paying their bills on time, or they're not remembering to get appointments. They're not able to organize the calendar, get where they need to go. Oh, they cannot remember what their medications are and when they should take them and to keep those prescriptions filled. Those are kind of the common situations. Well, you may not be able to, that would be like the ability to manage your everyday affairs. And you may not be able to remember your prescriptions or get them filled or manage a calendar or balance a checkbook. But you might still have the ability to know who your trusted people are and who you want to have help you and who you want to benefit at the end of your life. And so I think that's the universe. And I'll just say a couple of other things and then let you, there is this middle area. It's pretty clear when you have a dementia patient at the end of their diagnosis where they need help with everything and they don't know who they are or where they are or what they need. It's clear that they need 100% surrogate decision-making at that point. There is a long time up to that point where people need some support, but they're not without the ability to make decisions. But more importantly, they are very, very subject to influence of other people. That creates a risk area. And so that call that you were just talking about, when someone calls in and says, mom is, losing her marbles, and we need to change her documents, or I need to get POA over mom. Hear that a lot.
Yes.
Well, I mean, that's just not something we do because you called and asked us to. That's going to involve a real assessment of mom and what her current abilities are and what she wants. And if she's not able to have that conversation with a third person, she may not be in a situation to make a new plan,
Right.
which is why we emphasize the prior plan.
Yes.
So much.
Absolutely. In fact, you just described an exact scenario I walked through with a family, and I directed them to their attorney. I think it was here actually, because, and many times it's because family members don't agree, but there really are times when, or here's one too, mom or dad hasn't made the plan, and then they need that surrogate decision maker. And in particular in healthcare, Heather, the healthcare system or the physicians or the medical providers come looking to someone who's going to make that decision.
Yep.
Maybe you can sort that out just a little bit for them too.
Yep.
In the event that there is no plan or no document.
Yep. And forgive me for just looking down at a couple notes, but I just wanted to be sure because I had some thoughts about this.
Perfect.
I didn't want to leave them out. So sorry to be going off of notes. So, all right. As I've said, best case scenario, you thought about this when you had all your marbles.
Yes.
And you made documents, and I know this will be a subject of a later series, so I'm not, but there is a healthcare power of attorney, and there is what we call a durable general power of attorney, which is typically financial and legal.
Yes.
So I'm not going to go deeply into those, but those are the documents that you can do ahead of time where you vest someone else with the power to make decisions for you. And not to be too self-serving for my profession, but because most of my work is litigation where these plans aren't in place or they're falling apart, I do think it's well worth the time and money spent to get those documents done in the first instance.
Yes.
But, all right, so a couple scenarios you just pointed out. One is there are no prior documents, and so we are looking to step in and support someone. For me, that involves where are they on the sliding scale of capacity, and are they a candidate to still execute legal documents? It is anytime that that we're thinking about putting legal documents in place for someone who has already had some kind of diagnosis or for whom there is a documented record of loss of cognitive ability, that is risky and fraught because documents executed without the requisite legal mental capacity or documents executed under the influence of a third person are subject to be set aside later on. Right. So, and it is one of the primary vehicles where older adult financial exploitation can happen is someone getting the power at this vulnerable point for an adult. So for me, if we're going to be talking about creating legal documents for an older adult where there's already questions, for me in my practice, and maybe others would disagree, I'm going to want to see a physician give me some documentation that the person still has some ability to understand circumstances and decisions, even if they couldn't buy and sell their own stocks in the stock market at that level, that they have some ability to appreciate the nature of their finances and the nature of their trusted supports. Right. But the second and more important thing is I'm really going to look for the support people in this person's life to speak with a unified voice. Yes. Right. So if mom is compromised and has no documents and you want to bring her to me for a plan, mom will have to come in and meet with me and be able to tell me that she wants help and whom she wants it from. But I'm also going to want to hear all of the beneficiaries. It might be children, it might be others in an existing estate plan, but anyone who would be a stakeholder in her well-being during her life and after her death, I want all of those people to tell me that they agree about the plan. Because if those people don't agree about the plan, you can bet we're going to be litigating that plan after she's gone, and everyone is going to be fighting about who spent her money and how and what in these last few years. So it needs to be, and so that requires transparency, trust, and communication among all the support people in an adult's life. The biggest red flag is one trusted person in their life unilaterally making changes without consulting with the others. That could be one sibling of several. It could be a caregiver to the exclusion of children. Many scenarios, but one person to trying to make a plan or get control is dangerous, and I usually won't do it. And so where does that leave us with no documents if you can't get everyone on board? Because sometimes you can't, and the kids are just fighting and they don't agree. In that situation, you are going to wind up in a court in a guardianship situation. And that's what we were talking about before, where you seek to have the person declared to be incompetent, and then the court appoints a guardian to take over that person's affairs. That is an expensive process. It can be a very traumatic, painful process. It can be scary, and it is not conducive to people working together. It often pits family members against each other. But that is kind of the gap stop in our society for adults who need help. That is how you do it. But I think most of this kind of public communication and work is really about helping people not get to that point by doing an earlier plan.
I love that. And so you just kind of hit us right over to the April session on these documents is having the plan. And Heather, people watch this from all over the country, actually. And let's say they're not here locally, but where could they go to find people like you? I mean, what is there a national association? Where can they find people like you to guide them the same way?
Yes. The National Association, or is it Academy? It's the National Academy of Elder Law Attorneys, NAELA, NAELA. They have a website, I think it's naela.com or naela.org, where you can search for attorneys within your zip code so many miles. Anyone who is with the National Academy of Elder Law Attorneys really focuses their work around the legal needs of the aging population. So that's everything we've been talking about, plus more. It includes how to pay for end-of-life care with Medicaid and other things that are definitely not on the agenda for today's topic. But NAELA is a good resource, but also attorneys who do estate planning in your community are all well-versed in these kind of surrogate decision-making documents, which, depending on who you are, it could be powers of attorney. It also, in certain circumstances, can be a trust. Trust is not appropriate for everybody, but for the right person, it can also function for surrogate decision-making as well as financial protection and other goals that I'll leave it at that without getting more specific. So I guess I was going to say something too, unless you wanted to direct me.
Please.
You asked about when sometimes there's already a plan in place and the plan isn't working. And so I kind of wanted to address that. So that might be where mom and dad did consult with an attorney, maybe 10 or 15 years earlier. They have powers of attorney. It says who should. Usually these documents are written for, this is my first choice. Often there's a second choice and a third choice in there. Very commonly, people just rank their children in order of birth. And so you see the oldest child first, the second child second, the third child third. And I would caution people who are planning that that's not necessarily the right approach. And frankly, sometimes it's not even any of your children, although it may be one of your children, or it might be a son or daughter-in-law, or it might be a grandchild, or it might be a niece or nephew. But it is really important that you choose someone who is financially solvent themselves. You never want to choose someone who struggles to keep themselves financially on their feet, because it just creates risk when that person then has control of your assets if they are financially in a dire place themselves. So look for financial solvency, and look for someone who can be transparent. I talk about creating a circle of trust, and the best thing I think you can do is have some checks and balances. So maybe have one person in charge of healthcare decision making and a different person in charge of financial. If you work with a financial advisor, even better, because that person can be in the circle of trust. But if you don't use a financial advisor, one thing that I like to do is to tell the person who I'm giving my financial control to that they have to give periodic reports of my finances to one or two other people. That another common thing is to just let multiple people in your life get copies of your bank statements, which you can set the bank up to do that, even if only one person is authorized. These suggestions make people uncomfortable sometimes because we are used to thinking that our finances are private. Many people don't talk about their financial situation to anyone, and they don't even talk about it till their children. There is, in my mind, a push-pull on protecting yourself from being taken advantage of later in life, and being transparent with more than just yourself about what your situation is and what your choices are. And I think if you can bring a couple of people into your circle of trust, let them know what your plan is ahead of time, it cuts off later fighting about who is going to be in charge. The worst case scenario is the one person you put in charge of everything is not financially stable, and they will justify using your money for their purposes. I mean, often not with actual ill will or intent to do wrong, but individuals are sometimes in a significant caregiving role, and it feels right to them that they should be financially rewarded. So they unilaterally make that decision. And you can get really taken advantage of, or your heirs and beneficiaries can really lose out in a way you maybe didn't intend it.
Can I insert something, Heather? I run into, I do lots of presentations on advanced directives, making sure people have them. And I always talk about just have your financial piece in order. So many family members will say, oh, but I'm on mom's bank account, or I'm on dad's bank account.
Thank you.
Help us realize that's not enough.
I don't love that. It is
it's well-meaning.
It's well-meaning. And so putting yourself on the bank account, we hear that usually means you have been made a joint owner of the account. And in most cases, that means when the person dies, that money is yours. Well, it seemed convenient when you did it because it gave you instant ability to write checks and get statements, make sure their bills are being paid, access to their money. The number one, by putting someone in your bank account, you're effectively giving them all of the money that's in the account. That might not be what you intended. And it also means that when you die, they will get all of that money to the exclusion of your heirs, or if you had a will that dictates beneficiaries, you've now taken that account out of your probate estate. That's a technical term, but assets that will pass under your will. So you may be unwittingly depriving your beneficiaries of those assets. And it just creates more opportunity for exploitation. The better choice is a power of attorney, because you can get on someone's bank account as a power of attorney. But I admit that there are situations where that just isn't going to work for whatever reason. And so I tell clients, if you really need to put one person on a bank account, then you need to make that a specific account that is going to have a very low balance of not all your assets, not your big accounts, but something that you can control what's coming in and out of there. But in general, I would say that's a no-no. There's better ways that are less fraught with taking advantage of.
Absolutely. Wow.
It's a lot. And I guess I would just say one more thing about the decision-making and where the danger zone for me, and I kind of said this before, but is it's when cognition begins to change. I'm not a neurologist, so I'm not really qualified to explain the brain science, although I'm pretty interested in it and I've read a lot about it. And there is something that happens after age 70. I mean, we all know, if you yourself or your parents, you've experienced older adults being more forgetful, being a little bit slower in how they process information, and not being so able to easily grasp like technology or new things. And that is really all because of the way that their brain chemistry is changing. They are not able to do things. There's a long period of time, starting anytime after age 70, where you are still moving about your life just as you always have. You get up, you go to the gym and you exercise, you go to the grocery store, you might have people over for dinner, you do your own shopping. You know, your children are not worrying about you because you are fine, you can drive. But your brain has changed enough that you are beginning to be, you lack a little bit of self-awareness. And importantly, you lack healthy skepticism. And that's a really crucial phrase. When you begin to lack healthy skepticism, it means you're just becoming too trusting. You're more likely to trust what someone sent you in an email, what someone sent you on a text, click here, or you've probably heard the scams, the call from the grandson in Idaho who wants you to wire $10,000 to get him out of jail, and please don't tell mom and dad. And these things that, if they happened to you when you were younger, you might go, wait a minute, that doesn't seem right. Really, something happens over age 70 where you lose that ability to think, wait a minute, this doesn't seem right. And that can also be with the people in your life, people who are coming in to help you, who might really be in a position to take advantage of you. And so I think the most important thing, if you are a younger person, is to just admit that this may happen to you.
Yes.
Don't believe that it won't happen to you. And think through with your circle of trust, what's that going to look like when I lose my healthy skepticism, when I lose my self-awareness about my ability to protect myself, and how are we going to start to add in family members to help?
Wow. I think that just hit the whole spectrum of our audience, Heather.
Okay.
Because, I mean, not only is that for adult children, many of whom watch this, but for people who are aging well, or may even consider yourself old. That's up to you, but that's sage advice. That really is. That was a good way to end it. Thank you. Are there other pieces? Because that accepting piece is, or that this might happen is important.
I mean, I think it's the hardest one, and because I don't think any of us, I think about this for myself all the time because I regularly talk about and teach this, but it is hardest to know for yourself when you're not functioning. Everyone else around you will see it. So I think being alert to the suggestions of the people who love you, letting them in, that transparency that I talked about before. But and I think if you are supporting an older person, which can be super frustrating because sometimes they are doing things that you think are really stupid and they are not open to hearing that from you, and they're not open to changing their behavior. That is hard and takes a loving approach, but I think you need to be insistent on finding a way to get yourself in there. One of the first things I think you can do for someone you're worried about is, if you are their trusted person, to encourage them to begin to share their financial statements with a group that can have checks and balances around it. And that can look different for different people, but it could be the most important thing to be able to spot what's normal for this person so that we can immediately spot when something not normal is happening.
Wow.
So,
well, thank you. My goodness. So take some takeaways. That circle of trust, that's really important. Heather defined competence or incompetence for us. She talked lot about capacity, but everything has been under the umbrella of decision making and making sure your plans are good and strong so that the decision making follows your wishes.
Exactly.
To avoid having to go to litigation about anything.
That's right.
So,
That's right.
wow. Thank you. This feels weighty, but this is the right thing. So think about this. Talk about this with your loved ones. Call up a trusted attorney. Maybe that person's in your circle of trust. Maybe you already have powers of attorney for both financial and health matters. Talk with this about them. Have those difficult conversations. I think, Heather, it's a gift when we have these difficult conversations with our circles of trust, because that way there are no surprises, because stuff happens that none of us plan on.
That's right.
Oh,
That's right.
I'm feeling so grateful. A little heavy, but a little lighter having put this out there to the community. So take a listen, share this with others, and we're just so grateful. And thank you. Thank you and Van Winkle Law, absolutely, for doing this with us. So join me next Monday, which is March the 2nd, 2026, for another topic associated with living well and aging well. And if you have any questions, go to our website, fourseasonscare.org, or give us a call at 866-466-9734. Thank you so much, and thank you, Heather. Bye.